Boswell'S Galloping Farmers, Episode 6, Proud Troopers, or Poor Bloody Infantry.
"60 years it's been. I can't quite believe it myself. You live your life. You think it's all behind you. But it's still there. Inside you. The sights, the sounds, and the smell of it all. Aye, the smells. I've read a lot about it. The Gallipoli campaign. But I've never found anything that tells the story of what it was like for the ordinary ranker. I just think it's time somebody tell that story." When I finally got to the rest camp, I was told to get a quick meal and report to Lieutenant Turner to help him to plan and mark a route for the regiment to follow in the dark. We would be using white markers to guide the regiment for the rest camp down to V Beach for embarkation and evacuation. This was my reward for efficiency. Or was it my punishment for being an enthusiastic idiot? Never volunteer, they say, but Sandy Barclay never listened. I wasn't just a marksman and a trained bomber, but I'd also taken a 2-month training course under Mr. Turner in the spring, passed my test as a scout, and I had all the badges on my sleeve to prove it. Did I say idiot? It took all afternoon to work it out. Wasn't an easy job because we had to find a route to guide the regiment diagonally across communication routes and trenches in the hours of darkness. It would be complicated because these would be the same routes being used by other relief parties and fatigue parties, as well as mules carrying ammunition and Garys hauling equipment, shells, food and water to maintain the troops in the firing line and supports. There'd be parties carrying the wounded for treatment to the field hospitals and the dead for burial. All of these different parties would be demanding priority of progress for their own particular job. We finished in just the time to eat something before we set off with the leading file of the regiment as soon as it was dark enough to get on the move without being observed by the enemy's observation posts. It wasn't just that we needed to move without being seen and shelled. We were out in the open for a lot of the time. And what we didn't know at the time was we had to make sure that the Turks didn't suspect that an evacuation was taking place. There were all sorts of tricks and devices that had been left, to fire weapons and such, to trick the Turks into thinking we were still in place. We had a few delays when we were crossing the busy communication lines, but we finally made it to the embarkation gangways, into the huge collier ship, the River Clyde. At that point, I fell back to the rear of the column to join with my bombers, who'd been bringing up the rear. By the time the embarkation was nearly finished, it was obvious we wouldn't all get on board because the ship was already overcrowded. I got instructions to take my 20 or so bombers along to W Beach. The adjutant gave me a chit to authorise our shipment for there. We'd got our kit bags which we'd collected for the regimental dump before we set off to board the River Clyde, and we were in full marching order with all our equipment. This itself weighed about 94 pounds on top of everything else we were carrying on us, and I was just about all out for exhaustion. Still, I managed to get us across the 1-mile journey to W Beach. Just 1 mile. Doesn't sound much, does it? But we had to find our way round and across the old trenches and shell holes which had been the Turkish shore defence system. Our own guns had torn them to pieces on the first assault by our troops, so I would say that we had covered at least twice that by the time we got to the beach. Eventually, I found the embarkation officer and we got on board a ship, at sea and on our way to Madras. We weren't any better off than we would have been on the River Clyde because it was standing room only and we were packed in like sardines with no room to move. Then, just my luck. Bad luck, that is. I was talking to one of the lads when I heard a familiar voice behind me.
Hello, Barclay. Thought I heard your voice. How did you get here?
Lieutenant Montgomery, sir. Good to see you, sir. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thanks, Barclay.
Oh, I have your field journal here in my pack for you, sir. We found it after you'd been dug out and taken down to the hospital.
Good man, thanks for that. I'll take my journal back from you now then. That shell nearly did for me after they dug me out. I was lucky there was no serious damage done. All patched up. Close call though. Are any of the regiment with you?
Yes, sir. There are 10 of the lads with me, and I saw some of the regimental signallers on board as well, but I didn't know how many of them there are.
Good. Let's get a list of the Esher yeomanry we have on board. Pop round the ship, would you, Barclay? Get back to me with a list of all our lads on board. Names, regimental numbers, that sort of thing. And we can pull everyone together when we get off.
Right you are, sir. Go and do that now then, will I?
Good man, Barclay. On you go. Oh, and make a note if they are short of any equipment and need replacements.
You could hardly move on that ship, and it took me to daylight to get the full list, by which time we were just about to sail into the harbour at Madras. I hadn't slept for 3 days and nights, and I was just about done in. If we hadn't still been packed in so tight, I think I might have fallen over where I stood. As we were disembarking, I stood next to Lieutenant Montgomery to help him to collect together the members of the regiment as they came down. As Corporal David Brown came down the gangway, he slipped and badly injured his ankle. So Mr. Montgomery told me to get a stretcher party and take him to the campsite. I organised that, and he was brought ashore and laid at the roadside. When some lads were sent to collect him later when we were ready to move off, he'd disappeared. Turns out that in the dark we were right outside the hospital. Somebody had found him, thought he was in a coma, and brought him in, where he was then shipped out right away to Malta and then off home. After I had organised the stretcher for Brown, I don't remember a thing. They told me afterwards that when I got into camp, I just lay down and went to sleep. They tried to wake me for the midday meal but got no response. Then for the evening meal, and when the same thing happened, they sent for the doctor. He couldn't wake me either. So he said to let me sleep on and I'd be all right the following morning. They did, and I was. I slept for 22 hours solid, and I woke up on the 1st of January to a strange silence, which I just couldn't understand. For a minute or two there, I thought I was... well, never mind. Then it finally dawned on me what the quiet, actually meant. The only problem for me was that after everything I'd been through in the last week, finishing it up with 3 days of constant activity and no sleep, I couldn't settle. Every time a transport wagon came near me, it was all I could do, not to dive for cover. Just after breakfast, Mr. Montgomery sent for me, and when I reported to him in his tent, I got both a kick up the arse and a compliment.
Good morning, Barclay. I'd like a word with you. Are you aware that when I ordered you to get a stretcher for Brown yesterday morning, you turned to carry out my order and you swore? I want an explanation of your conduct. To be frank, you're the last man in the regiment I'd expect that kind of conduct from.
Me, sir? I'm so sorry. I'm mortified. I honestly can't remember doing that, sir. I can sort of remember getting a stretcher for Brown. Is he all right? But I can't remember doing anything after that till I woke up this morning. I'm very, very sorry if I did that, sir.
I've been told that you've been on constant duty for a considerable time. You better give me all the details.
Well, sir, after you got hit, I was made acting sergeant and put in charge of all the bomb saps on my own, so I was on it all the time. I got bombed, but I was alright, just a nick, but some lads got killed.
So I tell him exactly what I had done, since I'd taken over control of the bombers when he was rendered unfit for duty in the afternoon of the 27th.
Getting supplies. That was hairy, a lot of shelling. Then I had to get up and get down his body back down, and then
He was pretty annoyed.
marking out the safe route down to the boats for the evacuation.
Was there only one bloody NCO in the regiment capable of doing what you've been doing? What the hell were the others doing?
Which was exactly what I'd been thinking. I heard afterwards that he rather forcibly brought the matter to the attention of the adjutant, with emphasis on the overworking of a man with a first-class record, to the extent that he swore when receiving an order for his superior officer. I don't know if this was true or not, but I do know that in the afternoon, Major Kennedy, my squadron commander, sent for me. He thanked me and complimented me, and he hinted that he was putting my name forward for another decoration. I never heard any more about that. They don't decorate you for swearing at an officer. But I was pleased, because the Major certainly wasn't known for handing out compliments. Still, I got promoted to corporal pretty quickly after that, and a few months later to sergeant. Before that midsummer, a lot of the older NCOs had gone home, and I found myself the senior sergeant in the regiment and, as such, quite frequently, acting squadron sergeant major. When the regiment left the Gallipoli Peninsula on the 17th, we left behind Captain Dunlop and Lieutenant Campbell as beach officers to assist the evacuation, and also a fatigue party under Sergeant Morton, which included troopers Alex Young, cousin of mine, and Jock Smith for Castle Douglas. They had quite a rough time, I was told. Their duties included helping to load the boats with army guns and equipment that was too valuable to destroy or leave behind. Jock told us a story when we met up again about a wee touch of a ranker's revenge. The fatigue parties had access to all the supplies that were left, so they had plenty of food and rum available, since all they had to do was open a box and help themselves. Leading, of course, to some high spirits at times. Jock and another trooper, Callahan, were detailed to help load the brigade headquarters tackle into a lighter, a kind of flat barge, via a floating platform made of 2 narrow planks. This platform was anything but steady, and it made their job as difficult and unpleasant as it could be, because there was a constant danger of them being tipped into the sea. An officer was stationed near the lighter end of the gangway, supervising the loading, and 2 members of the fatigue party immediately ahead of Smith and Callahan were asked by the officer what they were carrying.
A box of horseshoes.
All right. Into the sea with it.
Now, Jock and his mate were having difficulty with a particularly big box containing the brigadier's property. To be exact, his saddlery and equipment for his horse. So when they were asked what they were carrying, the answer resulted in another box of horseshoes finding a watery grave. Brigadiers were none too popular in their days, but despite a lot of investigations and threats to all and sundry, he never did find out what happened to his saddles and gear. Ranker's revenge, as I said. Sweet. Just before we were evacuated, we were told that we were being replaced by another corps, and that we would be sent to Egypt, be brought up to strength and re-equipped, ready to go back into action on the peninsula in the spring. I believed it, and so did everybody else, far as I know. So it came as a shock when a week later we were told that all your troops had been finally evacuated from the Cape Helles Peninsula.
I just can't believe it. What's going on here?
Me and all. In fact, I'm really angry here. What was the point of all this? What do you say, Sandy?
What do I say?
Shocking. That's what it is.
Aye, there's that. I can't help thinking back on what we've done here. Right from the start, they landed us on the beaches, Right in front of the Turks' guns, making mincemeat is.
Aye. Sent us right into the barbed wire.
And the barbed wire in the water as well to get us stuck there.
Aye. Sitting ducks.
And shooting on top of us with everything they've got.
Aye, and they had plenty. Way more than us.
And they were well dug in and ready for us too.
That they were, Jack. That they were. But did we not give them a fight?
Aye, we did. Aye.
We did.
3 months, lads. 3 months we've watched our mates die. They've killed ours and we've killed men on the other side. And we've lived in amongst all of them. Most of them lying and rotting where they fell.
Aye.
All together.
The flies didn't care if you wore a kilt or a turban. All one to them.
There's a lot for the food we had as well that they still wanted to eat that and all.
God, aye. No wonder we were all boking and skittering all the
I think
time.
the jaundice and the dysentery probably killed more than the Turks managed to.
Probably.
Right enough.
Aye, I know. Remember back just before the first attack? Mind we were still in our summer gear sitting in the middle of a blizzard.
I'm still cold.
I don't think I've ever been so cold in all my life. And now this. Just pull out. After all that I've died and all that we've gone through here. All the men, all that, and it's just... Right then, pull out and leave them to it. Just like Wally said. What the hell was the point to it?
When you take all of what we had gone through to achieve nothing, I doubt that such a level of hardship, suffering and loss has ever been experienced by any part of the British Army before or since, even going back to the Crimean War. Is it any wonder I was depressed, confused and angry? Cape Helles hadn't any happy memories for us. We never wanted to see the bloody place again. But we had left so many of our comrades behind us there. Good men who'd fought beside us, whose shattered bodies we'd had to leave in that barren, broken place with nobody to tend their graves. Not one of us was sorry to leave Gallipoli, but very few were really glad. And how had we performed? Proud troopers turned poor bloody infantry. We had every right to hold our heads high. We'd taken on any job we were given without question. We were better diggers and fatiguers than any unit that we were in contact with. We knew how to deal with all types of weather, and especially the terrible conditions that we had to endure towards the end of the campaign. And this was because we'd worked on farms, where the hard physical work had given us the advantage of our people that had worked in shops, or offices, or factories.
We had proved as steady under attack or bombardment as any other unit. And the day we were evacuated, when I went up to recover Downey's body, I saw the unit which had relieved us the day before. They had withdrawn to the support lines under enemy bombardment. We hadn't. That, for me, was proof that our regiment was second to none. Poor bloody infantry? No. We were well entitled to be called proud troopers.
That's my story of Gallipoli. I've told it because there aren't many as left now who were there and who can. I've spoken the words and I've told you what happened to me, but it can never come close to the reality of it. You can't tell the noise, the filth, the stench, the terror of being under fire, the horror of seeing your friends blown to pieces around you and of you doing the same to others. We became inured to death. It was all around us, and it was ever present. Jaundice and dysentery took a terrible toll on the soldiers in the trenches. There wasn't any cure for dysentery. You went to the doctor, and all he could do was give you arrowroot to try and bind your insides up. It didn't work. A man would be feeling unwell in the morning, and he'd be pouring blood all day, dead by nightfall. At home, a death was an event that was grieved over. In the trenches, death struck again and again, day in and day out. Deaths without dignity. Deaths of young men. Deaths for anything but natural causes. And so many. Out of about 420 other ranks for our regiment who landed on that peninsula, there was only about 150 left to evacuate when we were eventually pulled out. My own troop, B Squadron, was one of the worst hit. Out of 34 members that went out, only 4 of us came back. Myself, a signaller, 2 bombers. 5 had been killed, a similar number wounded, and the rest had been taken by diseases and the filth of the battlefield. Of the 213,000 British casualties at Gallipoli, 145,000 died of disease. In the end, it was a campaign that failed. Many men fought bravely, and many men died. But they men didn't fail in the task they were given. The fact was that the task they were given couldn't be achieved. I know of many that came back for that war that would never speak of what they had seen and experienced with anybody. And I can well understand why. I speak of it here so that you might know the smallest part of what war means, and in the hope that you may never have to know the reality. And in remembrance of Boswell'S Galloping Farmers.
For we're all in the mud, and we're kneeling and praying. If you poke out your feet, you could quite well be staying. If I ever get paid, there'll be money still laying in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. Oh, they took away my horse, said you're now a fat soldier, gave me a new rifle with a big jagged poja. I was out flinging bombs afore I was much older in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. For we're all in the mud, and we're kneeling and praying. If you poke out your feet, you could quite well be staying. If I ever get paid, there'll be money still laying in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. There's Ayrshire men, Lanark men, Sophies and Crosbies, Fairmars and Steelmen and wee Glasgow Keelies. There's nae food for us, but we're feeding the beasties in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. For we're all in the mud, and we're kneeling and praying. If you poke up your feet, you could quite well be staying. If I ever get paid, there'll be money still laying in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. I've been bombed, I've been shelled, I've been shot at and buried, I've dug in the muck, and I've crawled and I've scurried, I've seen men being killed. Mine hands are bloody in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. For we're all in the mud, and we're kneeling and praying. If you poke up your feet, you could quite well be staying if I ever get here. There'll be many still laying in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay. Oh, the proud sons of Ayrshire in this muck of lyin, the list is sailing. Oh, the families crying. Can somebody tell me for what will me dying in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay? For we're all in the mud and we're kneeling and praying. If you poke up your feet, you could guy well be staying if I ever get here. There'll be many still laying in the bloody red mud that's beyond Suvla Bay, in the thirsty red mud of Gallipoli.
In Boswell'S Galloping Farmers, Sandy Barclay was played by Martin Gallagher and young Sandy by Lorenzo Navani. Mark Coleman was Lieutenant Montgomery. The men and officers were played by Taylor E. Blades, Kenny Burnham, Robert Donaldson, Ewan Galbraith, Fraser Kirkland, Graham Corn, Ian McAleese, Derek Crawford Munn, and William M. Watson. The song, the Gallipoli Waltz, was composed and performed by Martin Gallagher. The music was arranged and performed by David Simpson. Boswell'S Galloping Farmers was based on the memoir of Sandy Barclay, edited by Rob Close and William M. Watson. The play was written by Jill Corn and Martin Gallagher. Our sound engineers were John Boyd, recording at the Hospital Broadcasting Studios, Glasgow, and Terry Merrick at Origin Studio, Dublin. Sound design was by John Boyd.